Okay, this video was 3 days in the making. I got the wild hair up my backside and thought I would try my hand at macro photography. Because macro photography is just taking close-up pictures of small things, right? Yeah, it's not quite as straightforward as that as I figured out over the last couple of days. Typically I'll do my photography and my filming during the day, I'll do my editing in the evening, and I'll upload the video the next day. No, this was photography and filming for 2 days straight. Finished up the video last night, had it all set and ready, and then realized that, it was after 1 in the morning, and I had left a lot of things out of the video. So what I ended up doing was just taking some pictures of flowers. Now I know for macro photography, flowers are very cliche, but if you're a beginner macro photographer like I am, stick to the cliche because it's a nice, or it's an easy place from which to begin. There's a lot of things out there that if you pick up and try to photograph, they don't necessarily make the great macro subject that you think it is. But there are a lot of things out there that look absolutely fantastic. After everything was all said and done and I was examining some really great macro photographs done by some really talented photographers, it really ended up opening my mind to all of the possibilities, and that it really is more than just getting in close to something small. I just by chance happened to own 3 macro lenses, so I didn't have to acquire any new equipment, and honestly, if you're doing it at home, you really don't need much equipment, just your camera, a macro lens. If you don't have a macro lens, you can get extension tubes on Amazon, really inexpensive, like $25, $35. You can get a set of 3 extension tubes. Just get on Amazon and search extension tubes for macro photography. So your camera, your subject, and a light source. Those are really the only 3 things you need. And perhaps a tripod if you're getting into the long shutter speeds. But if you're shooting with a big aperture, then you probably don't need that. However, when you're in close like that, your depth of field is so shallow. The likelihood of you actually shooting wide open, as I discovered, is going to be pretty slim. But anyway, I apologize in advance for some of the video and audio quality in the video here. Where prudent, I just cleaned out the audio and did a voiceover afterward. But yeah, macro photography is definitely not the easy, straightforward genre that you're thinking it is. But I enjoyed it, and I think I enjoyed a modicum of success. Even if starting off I wasn't even doing macro photography, I was actually doing still life, which, again, learning occurred and wisdom was gained. Today I'm tinkering around with a bit of macro photography. It's November in northern Michigan. The leaves are all down off the trees. Everything is really, really ugly. We're in between that fall color and winter stage where everything is just ugly. I could get out and do some landscapes if I really took the time to find one. They're there, I promise. The other thing is, I don't like being cold. Which is funny because I have no qualms about riding my motorcycle in the dead of winter. But today I don't want to be cold. So in order to keep the creative functions functioning, I'm going to tinker with a little macro photography. Macro photography isn't something I have a whole lot of experience with. but it does get me up and off the couch, which is something that I absolutely need to do. Macro photography also requires a whole lot of light. You got to have a lot of light when you're in close like that. So we're upstairs, out of the dungeon that is my basement office, and I am using this giant floor to ceiling window in my living room. What is really nice about macro photography is that you can apply a lot of the principles of other genres to this. You're basically building your own miniature set. You basically have yourself a scaled down set on which you can have total control. So, what I've done here today, and much to my wife's chagrin, I'm sure, is I've snipped off a leaf from her peace lily as well as an orchid from, well, a flower from her orchid. I'm sure I will hear all about this evening when she gets home. Let's just hope the sleeping doggos continue sleeping and they don't disturb my little miniature set. Now, as far away as I am here, I don't know if I would call this macro photography. It's certainly a close up. But this lens gives me a true 1-to-1 ratio. So that flower is about the same size as my sensor. So if I fill the frame with this flower, it's going to appear the exact same size. It's going to appear life size. But I'm not digging on the composition if I fill the whole frame because I'm not getting any of this leaf. And I really believe this is quite nice. I rather like this. So the smallest aperture I have on this particular lens is f22. I don't want to stop all the way down to f22 because it's going to soften my image through, diffraction. But if I go much larger than f16, I lose the depth of field I'm trying to have. I'm trying to keep pretty much everything in focus from the very bottom of this flower about 2/3 of the way through the flower. Sorry about the jake brakes. To keep the texture and the lines of this big leaf in focus. If my depth of field is too shallow, I lose that. Well, that's not macro photography. That's not macro photography at all. That's a still life. I mean, I still like it mostly. And before anybody shoots me in the face in the comments, yeah, I know, I get it. We're going back to the drawing board. So I'm down in the basement today. And the reason I'm working in the basement today is because it's already 1 in the afternoon. My kids are going to be coming home from school in a couple of hours. Working down here in the basement means I won't be interrupted when the kids come home because I'm not in a communal living space. Went to Home Depot last night and I picked up a poinsettia and an African violet. You see, I got them set up on the table here. I'm going to be using strobes, so all of this light down here won't really influence the photographs. We're going to get turned off, of course. But my shutter speed is going to be set at 1/125th of a second, so the only light will be coming from those strobes. Table is white, so I'm going to have to cover that up with a black cloth so I can keep that light from bouncing around. But my whole point for what I'm doing today is to force myself to slow down and think a little more critically rather than just photograph an orchid sitting on a peace lily because it was visually appealing. So hopefully, by taking a little more time with this, I'll be able to work it a little better and come up with something better than what I did yesterday. For this setup, my main light there is on the right. I was hand holding the other strobe on the left side as a fill light. I could have easily handheld the camera for this, but I think I wanted more stability and control by hand holding the strobe. I don't know if that makes sense, but it made sense in my head at the time. I ended up not keeping any of these images just because I felt the contrast was too flat. That big, soft, diffused light just didn't suit my taste for this. After swapping out the 60mm macro for the 50mm macro, I immediately noticed a ton of light spill falling onto the table. So that big old soft diffused light source had to go. Pulled off the soft sock from the reflector, put on a 10% grid. Way better, way better results. Higher contrast. I like that. I couldn't be more pleased with how these turned out. The depth, the clarity, the contrast, the color, everything. And there's no focus stacking here. That's just not a skill I've mastered yet. Just happy. And with the African violets, same thing. Super happy. I didn't quite get the depth out of them that I wanted. Perhaps I should look at focus stacking. But again, I'm just pleased as punch with the way they turned out. Well, there you have it. My first foray into macro photography that extended beyond just shoving my camera at something small. I rather enjoyed it. I got frustrated a little bit, but overall it was a pleasing experience. And now I can never say, well, there's nothing to photograph, because there's always something to photograph. All I got to do is grab something small and shove a camera at it. And now it is 01:30 in the morning. I am tired as hell. It's probably just all over my face here. So I'm going to go to bed. See you later.